Are you ready for letters 9 and 10? Grab your notebook and a pen and let's get started. Shalom, welcome to Rob on the Rock here at Scribe School. We're going to learn two more letters number 9 and 10. And that's the letters Tet, makes a T sound, and the letter Yod, which makes an I sound or a Y sound, depending on context. But we'll get into that later. What we're looking at now is just the formation. Let's do the letter Tet. I like to do the letter Tet starting in the middle of the dotted line if we're doing a 3-line page, and I just do a little curlicue going up and to the right, down all the way to the bottom, and then back up. It's kind of like a big fat circular paper clip or something. So if I do that, that's a little too narrow. That's too paper clippish. Pretty much almost inside of a circle shape, or maybe a highly inflated football. But that's our Tet. Now, some of the block styles might have you do something like this, where you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4 independent lines, and that's fine. It's not bad looking. Another is a straight line from the center up to the upper right, and then like a letter U, under like almost like a complete Pac-Man going up. But I like this. It's quick, it's easy, it's one smooth stroke. So that's our Tet. So we can write a bunch of these. We'll look at some different versions of Tet, like we have with the ancient scroll, the Great Isaiah Scroll that we've looked at, which is, like we've said, about 2,200 years old. But we'll also look at that Washington Pentateuch, which is about just over 1,000 years old, and we'll compare the Tets there. And I'm also going to look tonight, we're going to introduce the letter Yod. So if Tet is, like we've seen here, starting in the center and going around, the Yod is just going to be a vertical line connecting the top two if you're looking at a 3-line system. Just a straight line like that. Now, if you want, you can do a little squiggly. I like doing that if I'm writing quick. Sometimes I like a little flame. Looks like a little candle flame. So if I was going to practice Tet Yod, you could go Tet Yod, Tet Yod, Tet Yod. And remember, you want to give yourself a lot of time to practice to get used to these strokes. Yod, Tet, Yod, Tet. You can do squiggles, straight Yods like this. And my hand's always a little bit shaky. So you want to take some time and do that. And of course, you can write some big ones. Like if I make let's do big purple here. Like a big Yod, you can just do like a little part of an apostrophe if you like. Tet like that. And even, the fancy Yods look something like this. So you can do a fancy Yod and color it in if you like. And we'll see some of these fancy Yods. And a fancy Tet, they have all sorts of fancy Tets that you can see in some manuscripts. So if you want to get fancy, I'm sure you can look online and find some different styles. But when it comes to just the simple block, which is what we're focusing on here, for the Yod, we're just doing a little line like that, or like I said, a little squiggly if you want. And a Tet, just a simple spiral, like that. But what we're going to do next, we're going to look at them in context here. And then we'll come back and we'll look at all the first 10 letters together. So I'm going to shift into our Dead Sea Scrolls collection here. This is from the Israeli website. It's the Israel Museum in Jerusalem. It's free. You can look at this online. And we're looking at Isaiah 5 here. I wanted to find a good place where we could see tets and yods. And this is one of my favorite verses anyway. So here we have Isaiah 5, I think it's verse 20. And I'll read it to you. It says, Hoi ha'omrim le'ra tov u'letov ra. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil. I might have done a Rob on the Rock video last year on this passage, but woe to those. Well, why? Well, their dictionary's exactly 180 degrees out of phase, isn't it? If you're calling good evil and you're calling evil good, you've got big problems, because God's not going to change his his evaluation, his appreciation of good defines what good, and what he judges as evil is evil indeed. And for we humans, it's our job, when we seek his kingdom first, we start to learn, the things, we learn God's vocabulary. We learn to call good what God calls good, and we cease calling good what the evil, or what the world calls good, which is really evil. But aside from the theological lesson here that Isaiah leaves for us, hoi ha'omrim, we won't look at, well, I guess we could look at here. The first word here, hoi, is he, vav, yud. So if I were to see if I could bring on my little friend here. Can I do that? Let's see here. I guess if I move this over, let me do this real quick. What I'll do, we'll just have the first section where it says, Hoi ha'omrim le'ra tov, woe to those who call evil good. And then I'll bring this, I can bring this over a little further here. There we go. We're just learning as we go here. So I'll get a smaller piece of pen here, get my bearings. So hoi is the word he, vav, yod. And that's that word woe. Like we usually see that is woe. Like woe is me kind of thing. It's not a good thing, right? Hoi ha'omrim, woe to those who say. And again, this is the scribe of the great Isaiah scroll wrote these letters differently than I'm teaching you. Remember, his hey here is kind of this little kind of thing like this, and his vav is kind of like that, and his yod is like that. So that's what you're seeing right here, is something that I'm trying to roughly replicate, hoi. But in our block script, we're going to look at it like this: hey, vav, and yod. And notice the difference between a vav and a yod is just height. Hey, vav, yod. Ha-omrim, so there you see a hey again, ha, and then our friend aleph. Then a vav, ha-o. Now we haven't learned the mems or the resh yet, but we have ha-omrim. We see another yod right here. Those who are saying or who are calling lera, who say to evil, good. So now we're going to look at this word tov, because now we have all the letters to write tov. As I showed you here, we've got our tet, our vav, and our bet. Make that a little better. Tov, tet, vav, bet. And these are all made within that first 10 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, so we can start learning some vocabulary. Tov. Now, if we look at notice how his tet is written, it's not too different than what I'm saying to do. It probably a slash like this, kind of a curve under, and then it shoots straight up. His vav is more like a hook, like that. And remember, his bet goes like this. So that's the tov. I'm trying to replicate it right here. Tov. But the simple style that I'm advocating here is just a simple swirly like that, vav, and bet. Tov. And you know, this is that word for good. This is the word used many times in Genesis chapter 1, where it says, God well, each day it says, and he saw it was tov. Yarach ki tov. He saw it was good. And so we talked about the yod and the tet here from Isaiah. And if we just continued, it says letov ra. So you see tov again twice. Let me, that's as big as I can get. So see how it says tov, and then tov again, and then we have a vav and a lamed that he fit in here. But we see the word tov twice there. Now this is from Isaiah chapter 5, verse 8, taken from the great Isaiah scroll, written roughly 125 BC. Pardon me. Okay, now we're going to transport ourselves by imagination, of course, through time ahead about 1200 years to the time of the Tiberian Masoretes. And this is not Isaiah, because here, the Washington Pentateuch, we only have the Torah, the Pentateuch. But we are going to look at, continuing looking at Genesis 15 like we have, but this is further down. I think this is verse 15 maybe. This is the Lord talking to Avram. I say Abraham, but of course he's still Avram here. Ve'ata tavo el avotecha. You will go to your fathers beshalom. Beshalom, in shalom. We see only one yod here. You see this little guy? And this word, I think I can make him bigger. That's our yod. Isn't that beautiful? So the yod he's making here is, we'll bring our little guy over here, and I can, let me erase some of the mess I've made. See if I can get this to work right here. It's really a fancy, oops, lost my bearing. It's really just probably one stroke, something like this. Oops. So if you kind of see it there. So that's this guy right here. That's a yod. And here it's in the word avotecha. Well, we see the aleph. We recognize the aleph. That's the first letter. Then a bet. Now this bet, he's pushing the limit here on not having much of an edge. We want a little more edge there. The tav we haven't learned yet, and this letter kaf sofit we haven't learned. But avotecha, your fathers. So we see the yod there. Now let's, I'm going to zoom back out a little bit so we can see. But you will go to your fathers shalom. What do you suppose that means? Shalom. Well, means in or with. Shalom means in peace. And then we see tikaber. You will be buried besevat tova. At a good old age. Seva. We haven't learned all that. We've learned bet, right? So the scene here we have not learned. But there's a yod here. It's a little bit smudged. Yod, bet, hey. Beseva. Seva is old age. Tova, a good old age. So we see tov. Remember, we saw tov before in our passage from Isaiah. We saw woe to those who call evil tov, and they call tov evil. And so we saw that word tov. Let me move that down here, tov. Well, here we have the feminine form, tova, just by adding that letter hey, tova. So you see, we have a tet right here. There's our nice, beautiful tet. There's our vav. There's our bet. And then a hey, tova, tova. And it means the same thing as tov. The only difference is that Hebrew requires, if you have a feminine noun, in this case, seva, the adjective also has to agree with it in gender. So we get tov and tova both mean the same thing. They're just shifting their gender based on the needs of the Hebrew grammar. So tova. There's actually another tov a little bit further down. If you remember, Genesis 15, such a crucial passage of Scripture for many reasons, one of which is the famous passage from verse 6 that the Apostle Paul cites, that Abram believed in the Lord and it was reckoned to him as righteousness, of course, core doctrine. concerning the nature of faith and righteousness before our holy God. But here, and later, we have this covenant between the pieces, it's called, where Abraham is unable to go through the pieces as would be normally expected in this covenant ceremony. It's the Lord himself in the flame that goes through the pieces, taking the terms and the consequences of the covenant on himself, while Avram is unable to, which emphasizes that this is what we call unilateral. It's a covenant of grace. But it says, V'dor urvi'i yashuvu hena, the fourth generation will return here. Kilo shalem avon ha'emori, for the sin, or the avon, the transgression of the Amorites is not complete. But then it says here, or second tet, it says Vayehi. I wanted to show you this. So this is a word we can say now. Vayehi, it's Vav, Yod, He, Yod. So now, and it was Hashemesh. So we see the He there. Vayehi, Hashemesh. And it was that the sun, Ba'a, we know all these letters, Bet, Aleph, He, the sun going down. And it was the sun going down. Va'alata, and great darkness. So this word alata, as we see the vav here is and. The ayin is a letter we haven't learned, lamed, but we see this tet here. See that beautiful tet? And then a hey, alata, great darkness. And so we see here, just like we saw in Isaiah, we see the tet. And this tet is, very beautiful. If I were to try to draw this tet, I'd probably do, like a big kind of thing like that. Oops. Oh, my program thought I wanted a curve. I wanted like that. And then something like that. Oh, actually, no, let me take that one back. It goes thin and then wide like that. And then there's a little guy kind of going up. And then we have this little head put on there. So it's not super perfect, but you get the idea. I would probably do it differently if I were to do it again. But the point is, you see how there's probably at least 4 strokes, I would say, to this tet. And mine is a rough guesstimate there. Not super great, but you get the point. That's the nice, beautiful tet. And what we want to do with our simple block letter tet is just that, just like that. Because remember, the core point here is that these just need to be differentiated from other letters. You can make tiny tets or big ones, and then we can put. I guess it kind of looks like a nose too. If you put eyes on there, you could make that tet look like a nose. So yod could be that dash, something like that. Okay, with all that said, let's just go back now to our full board. And I'm going to erase some of this lovely scribble. And we're going to write our letters. So we have, oops, I sometimes lose my bearing on here. I want a little bit bigger of a, let's try that. So Aleph, there's our Aleph. Bet. Gimel. Dalet. Hey. There you go. Can you do all those from memory? Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey. Then we're going to go Vav, Zayin, Chet, and then today's letters, Tet, and Yod. We'll change colors here. Let's go to green. Let's go to the green. We haven't done green for a while. There you go. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod. Let's change colors, and we'll go red, and we'll go a little bigger maybe. Maybe see if I can fit them on there. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod. Not bad. Let's get one more color in here. What haven't we done? Let's do, I'm not sure what that color is. And we'll go backwards. We'll start with Yod. Then we'll go Tet. See, when we switch it up like this, Chet, Zayin, Vav, Hey, Dalet, Gimel, Bet, Aleph. Now, I'm referring to the line ahead. Don't think I'm doing that all from memory. I can't recite the alphabet backwards, or that's hard for me to do. So I'm just doing it by reference. But however we practice, when we change it up like that, we're reinforcing those. Like I tell my students, we're digging ditches in the brain. That's what we're doing. When you're learning a new habit, we got to do that hard work. It's like you're just digging ditches. You've got a spade or a shovel, and you're digging in the dirt, these channels, and those channels are going to store the memories. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav. You can see I'm trying to do it quicker. Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod. Now, if I were to try to do it real quick, you can see how sloppy I'd get here. But I'll just go real quick. So this is what you want to do. You want to practice and be able to do it quick. And don't worry about it if it's kind of sloppy. That's quite all right. Think about the difference. So if we talk about sloppiness, I mean, think about the difference between this product, this Scribe product, where this guy had all day. He was probably well paid. He was very skilled. And look at the precision. Look at the precision. The whole layout of the page is just beautiful, right? I mean, we have to zoom way out to see the whole thing, but each page of this book is like this, just beautifully produced. And of course, this is a codex. This is right? These are pieces of leather that are stitched together, and they're in a book, like a binding with a common spine. Here, this is the Great Isaiah Scroll is a single, well, they're stitched together. Sometimes you can see like where there is a stitch right here, for example. You can see where they actually stitched pieces together. But look at it. They just wrote, and it's not the greatest in terms of legibility. And so what we're looking at is, just necessity. Sometimes if some of these scribes could have been, with the Qumran scrolls, for example, could have been under a lot of pressure to write quickly. And so they're just, copying as quickly as they can. So just to review then. So we've got the word, Aleph, Bet, Aleph. We learned that one. That's the word Abba. Remember in Greek we would write that alpha, beta, beta, alpha, like that, Abba. And the reason why the double bet is a double beta is because something we'll learn later, there's going to be what we call a dagesh in that bet here, and that's going to make it a hard b sound, but we're not concerned with that right now. And that we learned the word tov. So tet, vav, bet, tov. Both use bet, we've got Abba, which father, tov is good. And there's a name, we could add a name here, the name Judah. The name Judah is Yod, Hey, Vav, Dalet, Hey, Yehudah. Let's write that one more time, and we could maybe change it to royal blue here for the royal line. Yod, Hey, Vav, Dalet, Hey. And so in Hebrew it's Yehudah, Yehudah, Yehudah. But these are all letters that we learn in the first 10 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. So stick with it. Keep practicing. Get your notebook full. I mean, even if you have to write an Aleph 1,000 times, it'll be worth it. Even if you have to write a Tet 1,000 times, it might seem like a drag while you're digging the ditches, but I promise you, your hand will be tired. You'll have to take breaks, but you'll get to that point to where those channels in your brain, those ditches that you've spent the time digging, they'll be strong and sure, and you'll the water of your learning, your memory will just run through those cleanly and without obstruction. And then you get on to much better stuff, really good stuff. This is good stuff, and there's a lot of good stuff to build once we get these super familiar. We want these second nature, as they say. All right, well, I hope you've enjoyed now letters 1 through 10, and Lord willing, we'll continue and make it all the way through the alphabet in videos to come. Shalom.